So I would like to begin by introducing Dr. Luciana Duranti. Dr. Duranti is since 1987 a professor of archival theory, diplomatics, and digital records in the master's and doctoral archival programs of the School of Information of the University of British Columbia in Canada, and since 2011 an affiliate professor at the University of Washington in Seattle, in the United States. Professor Duranti is director of the UBC Center for the International Study of Contemporary Records and Archives, and since 1998, the principal investigator of the InterPARES Research Project. She has published extensively on archival and diplomatics theory and on the use of their concepts for understanding the products of new technologies. Since 2015, she's the chair of the Canadian Government Standards Board Committee for Electronic Records as Documentary Evidence. Luciana.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk about generally about the project. I think that the entire project is based on a premise that records and archives are the critical infrastructure that support our values and our beliefs and principles. And this is why we need to maintain and verify their trustworthiness. And within the concept of trustworthiness, their reliability, accuracy, and specifically their authenticity. So when we were in the paper environment, we were able to protect the authenticity of the record after having assessed it based on the form of the record, on the provenance of the record, and on the documentary context. However, this was possible because records were inextricably and permanently linked to the medium on which they were written. So this idea was linked to the integrity of the record through time. The problem is that digital records cannot be kept, maintained, or preserved as they were created. It is only possible to maintain our ability to reproduce them and to recreate them. So when we talk about reproduce, that means when we close a digital record, we basically take it apart in all its digital components. When we recall it, we generate a copy. When we talk about recreate a record, we think in terms of we have a database. If we ask the same query over and over again, we should get the same answer every time. But in that case, we are generating a new record in that case. So this means that digital records are always green, are always new. So how do we prove the authenticity of digital records? Well, the assessment of the authenticity in the digital environment is always an inference that is based on elements that are external to the record. There may be significant properties as shown in the metadata, the identity metadata and integrity metadata, and it relies on circumstantial evidence. For example, in Canada, if we believe that the system in which the record has been stored through time has integrity, then we infer that the record has integrity. Or may depend on the policies and procedures that control the life of the record, or on the technology that encrypts or secures the access to the record. So can artificial intelligence help us with this issue? We know that artificial intelligence systems provide evidence that is inconclusive because it is based on probabilities, that is unscrutable because it's not transparent, that may be misguided because it is only as good as the data that are provided to the model. May be unfair, may have unfair outcomes with disproportionate consequences for different groups of people. May have transformative effects which challenge the autonomy and privacy of people. And it is very hard to assign responsibility for whatever it does for its products. And of course, decisions made by AI systems are based on past decisions. And when it comes to human affairs, tomorrow rarely resembles today. And data can't say what has a moral value or what is socially desirable. Now, in 2018, there was a declaration in Montreal which listed the requirements for the trustworthiness of the products of AI systems. And they were respect for well-being principle, for the autonomy of people, for privacy, solidarity, democratic participation, equity, diversity and inclusion, caution, responsibility, and sustainable development. Now, artificial intelligence has been used in the past in several projects for controlling and accessing records in archives or in a records management situation. But typically, all these experiments have looked at specific tools in a single set of records. And they were things like recurrent neural networks for classification of the content of large aggregations of records, recommendation systems that connect relevant images to digitized letters, chatbots that emulate human conversation through voice commands or text chats, a combination of named entity recognition, entity relation tools, and topic modeling to create visualization tools, etc. Now, what is the problem with all of this? Why we're doing this research? Well, because all the studies on AI for records have relied on existing off-the-shelf tools. And this reliance on off-the-shelf tools limits what challenges can be met, and it makes the needs of record governance subservient to the field of machine learning. So it is practical, yes, it is always easier to go to the store and buy something than have to develop it yourself. But there are many tangible instances of biases that have been found in modern machine learning models. And these have been driven mostly by the data collection practices. So this raises the question of whether off-the-shelf tools are the best solutions for records and what artificial intelligence would look like if this power relationship between AI and archives were reversed, with archival theory informing the creation of AI tools. So our answer has been to begin the fifth phase of InterPARES. So the InterPARES research project was funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada initially in 1998. Since then, it has addressed digital records issues, focusing on current and emerging technologies as they evolve over time, and developing theory, methods, and frameworks that allow for the ongoing trusted preservation of the records that result from the use of such technologies. The fifth and latest iteration of InterPARES, ITrust AI, differs from the previous one in a fundamental way, because it is not concerned with the records produced by a specific technology, but has the purpose of using AI to carry out archival functions for the control in the long term of all records on any medium, also the paper ones, from any age, also the parchment ones, and to do so in such a way that the trustworthiness of the records remains protected and verifiable, and that the tools and the processes are transparent, unbiased, equitable, inclusive, responsible, and sustainable. So the goal of ITrust AI is to design, develop, and leverage artificial intelligence to support the ongoing availability and accessibility of trustworthy public records. And it does so by forming an ongoing partnership that produces original research, that trains students and other personnel, and links academia, archival institutions, government records professionals, the industry in a feedback loop that reinforce the knowledge and the capabilities of each party. The objectives are to identify specific AI technologies that can address critical record challenges, to determine the benefits and risks of using those technologies on records, to ensure the records concepts and principles inform the development of responsible AI, and to validate the outcomes of this process through case studies and demonstrations. We, in fact, have more than 40 case studies and journal studies that relate to several aspects of records creation, retention, disposition, preservation, and access. They're carried out by about 200 researchers. The countries actually are 36 to date, they're no longer 28, so I should correct that one. And organizations have reached the 100 number in the past 6 months. So we are organizing international and multidisciplinary teams that include experts from AI, records and archives management, forensics, the law, data science, engineering, etc. Methods. Our approach is two-pronged because it comprises the practical need to address the problems that are already there, and also the longer-term need to develop AI tools that are applicable to future problems. And so the short-term approach focuses on identifying high-impact problems and limitations in records and archives functions and applying AI to improve the situation. The long-term approach focuses on identifying the tools that records and archives specialists will need in the future to flexibly address their ever-changing needs. Now, the fact that iTrust AI is a multinational, interdisciplinary endeavor means that our first effort, which has actually lasted a couple of years, had to be to understand each other, starting with the language that we use. For example, archival professionals talk about records, computer scientists, AI professionals talk about data. To archivists, data are the smallest meaningful unit of information in a record. To an AI specialist, data are organized information, possibly in a database, be it facts or not, regardless of size, nature, and form. And lately, I hear no longer the word data from them, I hear content. Give me content to work on this specific AI tool. So key to our work have been AI tutorials and workshops for non-AI researchers and archival and diplomatic theory tutorials for non-archival researchers. And this endeavor has been supported by a terminology database, which is developed in collaboration with a multidisciplinary team. So clearly, InterPARES researchers know that the dominant perspective is the archival perspective. We are here to solve archival issues. Archival terminology is to be used in the project outputs. We use deep learning, and I will let Mohamed explain what that is and not go into it. But it is important that in order to use deep learning methodology, we need a large amount of labeled data. And we aim in our case studies to label data according to the diplomatic methodology, because that's what diplomatics does. Takes a document apart and names each part of it. And so this type of learning, of course, is supervised learning, cannot be otherwise. And we are trying to apply it to a number of cases. The expected outcome, well, the project will improve upon existing tools and create new machine learning tools that will address the archival needs, like machine translation, image recognition and description. So we will use optical character recognition, etc. And Mohammed will talk about the textile transfer for language civilization, I'm sure, at one point, removal of bias, hate, and sexism. So the studies are all international and interdisciplinary. So within each team, for each study, we try to get people from various countries and various disciplines so that all the points of view are respected. They focus on all aspects of archival functions. They usually organize by function, so creation, appraisal, arrangement and description, retention and preservation, management and administration, reference and access. However, there are some studies that are general, that is, that relate to all the functions. One is obviously the development of the terminology, but think of all the educational studies. There are at least 2 studies that are about education for professionals about the use of AI. And then, for example, the Paradata study that is about how the archival profession has to document its own use of AI tools. Indirect outcomes are the creation of new professionals. There will be well over 100 professionals who will have worked as student research assistants on case studies with testbed organizations and who will spread the acquired knowledge. It is a recurrent event in the life of the InterPARES projects that the people who had been research assistant in a project eventually get a job in an archives or in a records management situation, and then they bring that organization or that institution in the following project. So they move from being student research assistant to being researchers themselves. And that is one of the achievements. Another achievement that we aim for is to bring students from our disciplines like computer scientists, lawyers, etc., archaeologists, to understand and value the archival perspective on their work and the impact on society. There is also knowledge co-creation because the project will enrich archival science, records management, AI, cybersecurity, information science, law, ethics, etc. And also, we aim to sensitize AI developers, AI scholars, and other members of the community to the role of AI in record keeping and archival preservation, and to the role of archival concepts and principles in AI design and development. And thank you very much. And now you will hear what are the specific studies.